My name is Adunya Worku. The real name actually is Adunya Worku because it's long and hard for those who have not grown up in the culture, in the Ethiopian culture. I cut it short. Adu is what I go by. Fortunately, it was my nickname in Ethiopia, so it fit. I was born in rural Ethiopia, in the northwestern part of the country, not far from the source of the Blue Nile. Very mountainous area. My parents were farmers, and subsistence farming is very labor intensive, and everybody has a role in life. Rural life with no technology of any sort is very challenging. And my role as a boy was, as soon as I turned 6 or 7, I became a shepherd. That was my role in the family. And I was out all day, every day, with a bunch of animals. When the Bible talks about goats and sheep, I get it. I had both. They are different in temperament, different in what they ate. Goats go for leaves most of the time. Sheep can graze, on grass. They eat leaves too. Sheep are calmer. Goats are very active. They're into everything. So I, as a shepherd, I got into trouble with goats who strayed and went into somebody's cornfield or cotton field and so on. Life was difficult also in another way, and that is we suffered a lot from infectious diseases. I mean, there were all kinds of diseases: malaria, typhoid, typhus, TB, smallpox, chickenpox, measles, whooping cough. I can go on and on. 50% of Ethiopian children born in those days died before their 5th birthday. 50%. My parents lost 7 children. Only 5 of us survived. And my wife's parents lost 4 children. So every family practically lost half of its children. Rough, really rough. But life has also had its moments of joy, of play. As shepherds, by the way, the shepherds banded together because they were predators, and it was also more fun to be together. So we took care of our animals. We had 3 responsibilities. Basically, the adults drummed into us. 3 things you need to remember at all times and do. 1, you make sure that the animals have food and drink, because it was an open field. We went whichever way we felt like. And 2, make sure that the animals do not stray and destroy somebody's crop. That spelled trouble, real trouble. And the 3rd one is, make sure they are safe from predators. There were foxes in the area. There were hyenas. and there were leopards. Occasionally, not every year, every month of the year, but there were seasons, and they must have been migratory birds. The eagles bothered us with the little baby goats and sheep. Very powerful birds, the eagles. And so, we were watchful. We protected our animals. We made sure that they did not destroy somebody's crop, and they had enough to eat and drink. So we learned as children the value of responsibility. Any slacker would not survive in that culture. Good lessons for life: hard work, responsibility, caring for animals, and so on and so forth. So I did that from age 7 to 12. The worst experience I had in shepherding was that harvest was over, and we didn't have to worry about the animals going and destroying somebody's crop and all that. So we were relaxed, and we played and all that, and we were not watching. That one day, the foxes had a field day. I lost 5 baby goats. 5. Needless to say that I was in deep trouble. Deep trouble. I learned my lessons, but it was an expensive lesson. So we lived with fear, The hyenas came out after sunset. The leopard did not really bother us, but the fact that it was there struck terror. Occasionally, it killed a goat or a sheep. And, it was the fiercest animal. Foxes were a nuisance. We could protect ourselves and, chase them. But there were so many of them. One would come this way and one would come the other way, and it's just, so, one of us boys will be on this side, one of us this, and we survived. Hard work, but then when we went to the river and they drank, they had their feed and they drank and they went to sleep. They rested. That's when we had fun. We played and had a little fun. There is a rite of passage in Ethiopian society. And I don't know if that has any connection, because Ethiopia has a very strong Jewish connection. And age 12 seems to be a very important age in Ethiopian culture and tradition. And so up to age 12, the children had their own table at mealtime. We did not eat with adults. All of a sudden, when I turned 12, I was drawn into the adult table. And so I literally became an adult at age 12. I was treated like one. I was given more responsibilities. In this case, I became a farmer. At least I was being trained as a farmer. My father taught me what his father had taught him. Basically, we used oxen to plow. So he taught me how to harness the oxen, how to plow in a straight line. The Bible talks about that. You have to plow in a straight line. And for that, the oxen have to be trained. You have to know how to talk to the oxen. You tell them to stop, they stop. You tell them to go, they go. You tell them to kind of go to the left so that the plow will be straight. They do. So he taught me the whole 9 yards, how to plow, how to sow, how to weed, how to harvest, and so on. And by age 15, I was actually fully trained, and I was plowing solo. So I did that from age 12 to age 15. So the rite of passage is both at mealtime, the way they treat you and the way you interact with the adults, and the symbolic one being at the adult table to eat with the adults. You hear the conversations, you're given a chance to have an input, you have even asked the question, what do you think? And the other one is the responsibility. The nature of the responsibility increases accordingly. Shepherds had, or have, because there are still a lot of Ethiopian boys who are shepherds. Not every Ethiopian child of school age is in school, because there are not enough schools and the parents don't send them. So there are still literally millions of shepherd boys in Ethiopia. I had, and shepherds generally have those slings. Rings a bell, the Bible talks about David and his sling. The sling is an extension of the hand. A rock goes much further with a sling than if you throw it with a bare hand. Like anything else, it takes practice to aim and hit a target. And, practice makes perfect. I was good at it, if I may say so. Second, we had a stick. That too is part of the cultural landscape now. A boy will not, or a man for that matter, leave home without a stick in his hand. We had a shepherd flute made of bamboo. That was more for entertainment, because when we had a little time, we played games. For example, we would hide something. We'd blindfold one of our members, and we hide something, and we communicate with the shepherd. They point, they stand in the middle, and they point, and we say, yes, that direction. No, you're way off. Just playing the flute. And then we take turns and we play that. So that was the role of the flute. I had a whip. And we were good at it. That too is for entertainment and for kind of to shoo the animals to go a certain direction. The time to go home, and that kind of thing. We also had an axe. Yes, sometimes we cut some leaves for the animals. It was also part of our protection. My father's cousin, now this is a wild story. My father's cousin was a very, very strong guy. He went hunting one time, and he had an axe. He had a spear and all that. He came face to face with a leopard. The leopard attacked. And this guy got hold of the leopard's tail. And cats, if you push their tail, tend to either pull that direction and they try to turn around, and you kind of pull. You pull. And so he hit the leopard with an axe, tail on one side, pulling hard, hitting on with an axe, and he actually killed him. He was the hero of the village for life. So, there are those kinds of stories. So we had those kinds of tools and equipments for entertainment, for functional purposes, and we made those things. We didn't have any gadgets. I raised two boys in this country, and all the toys we bought for them and all that, we never had that, but we made our toys. And in hindsight, we probably were better off that way than they were. And they were cheaper too. So a shepherd from age 7 to 12, a farmer from 12 to 15. At 15 years of age, something bad happened to me. Very bad, very painful. Every year, we were Ethiopian Orthodox Christians. My parents and I in the community was predominantly an Ethiopian Orthodox community. And the Ethiopian Orthodox Church has Jewish elements in it. For one thing, the church itself is Jewish. They have the most holy, the courtyard, the holy yards, the whole 9 yards, and a replica of the ark in the most holy place, a very sacred object. Once a year, the ark leaves the church, goes to the nearest river, and camps for about 3 days. And they reenact Jesus' baptism. And everybody is, sprinkled of holy water and all that. We went, my friends and I went every year. It was festive, it was celebratory, we had singing and dancing in the whole works. Very, very big season of the year. One year, my friends and I started out to go to the river where the ark had camped. And it was dark, pitch dark. And in rural Ethiopia, we walked a lot, barefoot. And we looked for each other. We looked out for each other. If somebody walking in front of me, you stepped on a sharp object, he would say, "Careful, there is a sharp object." If there is a branch across the path and it needed to be pulled to get across, before the person in front lets it fly, he or she would warn the person behind. Well, this one night, pitch dark, I was following a guy who pulled a thorny branch and let it fly without warning me. I went to Ethiopia in 2000 and I met the guy. And I wanted to know what happened, what happened? Was he aware of it? And his explanation was that the thorny branch got hold of his shirt sleeve. And he didn't know that. He kept walking and then it snapped back. That's probably what happened. At least I want to choose that is what happened. The guy and my father did not have the best relationship. And there were rumors that he did it on purpose. I have chosen his explanation because I don't want to live with, this eye has been a reminder of an unpleasant event. And to add to it that somebody did it on purpose is not what I choose to believe. I think his version is plausible. It probably happened like that. At least it is a possibility. And I have taken that possibility and I've given him the benefit of the doubt. So, you know, that thorny branch hit me smack in the left eye. Fortunately, probably if I had turned my head a little this way, both eyes would have gone. Terrible thought. The accident destroyed my lens, scratched my cornea, and then I developed a cataract. The doctors refer to it as traumatic cataract. And so my parents, the whole extended family got together and, you know, what should we do? Because the medicine men and women in the village tried the herbal medication and all that and it didn't work. So a decision was made that I should go to the big city for modern medical care. 15 years old, you know, remember at age 12, I had my rite of passage into the adult world. At age 15, I was considered really a full adult. So my parents or my relatives didn't go with me, you know, to that big city. I went with a group of merchants instead. I walked for 2 whole days to get there. I cannot imagine as a parent that I would have sent my 2 boys anywhere, much less, you know, 2 days journey. But that's what happened. And as it turned out, it was just as well. The hospital in that big city was an Adventist hospital. I say a big city, it really was a dinky rural town. But that's the only one I saw, and it looked big to me, bigger than the village at least. So I went there. The doctor was a missionary doctor from Norway, and I didn't get the help I went for. I was devastated. I really was. And I was set up for a big disappointment. You know, the adults had told me that, you know, these missionary doctors from America or Europe were magicians. I mean, they knew everything. They would cure any disease, fix any problem, you know, broken legs, hands, whatever. So I went there to get my eye back. Well, it didn't happen. Big letdown. But while I was there, I discovered education. Now, the Adventist Church, if I could digress somewhat, way back in the 1860s and 1870s, the Adventist Church, the pioneers of Adventism, had the vision to accept a holistic approach to life. The whole person was not just the mind or the body or the social or the spiritual, or it was a total package. And so they institutionalized that concept. In Battle Creek, there was a church, there was a college, there was a sanitarium. That mission outpost in northwest Ethiopia that I went for to get medical care had a church, had a school, and had a hospital. That became a prototype of Adventist work worldwide. The mind, the body, the spiritual, the social, in healthcare, in spiritual life, in education. We have lost sight probably of that original intent, that original vision. You know, we seem to specialize. You know, we live in a world of specialization. And when you specialize, you know, the sum of all the parts does not really give you a holistic, necessarily a holistic approach. I think it's a loss. But back to my story, when I saw students, big and small, older students, I just knew inherently that they had something better than I had. Some light went on in my head, literally. I said, I want to go to school. I really want to go to school. They were better dressed, they were cleaner, they were more informed, they could read and write. 15 and a half years old, I was an illiterate peasant. So, you know, I was born and brought up as a Christian, so I had heard the basics of Christianity. And one of them is that if you pray earnestly, God will answer your prayer. I did not have a formal prayer, and country people generally don't have a formal, it's very informal. Wake up in the morning and say, thank you, Lord, for a good night's rest. And at the end of the day, say, thank you for a good day. And, you know, bless our food and stuff like that. Well, my simple prayer to God at that point was, dear God, I don't know how you're going to do this, but I have heard enough stories that you do incredible stuff. In human terms, I have a very daunting task ahead of me. I don't have my parents' permission. I don't have any money, but I want to go to school. I really want to go to school. So somehow, some way, please make it possible. Please. Make a long story short, at age 15 and a half, I became a proud first grader with 6, 7, and 8-year-olds. I was absolutely ecstatic. Long story. I'm abbreviating, you know, how it happened. I literally went knocking on doors. And I think having grown up in rural Ethiopia and having become self-reliant, because we lived by our wits in rural Ethiopia. Rural Ethiopia, life in rural Ethiopia was not for the faint of heart. By age 15, we were toughened up. We were the survivors. 7 of my siblings didn't make it. I almost didn't make it, actually. When I was about 2.5 years old, according to my parents, I was very, very ill. Very ill. And I died, according to them. I had sustained temperature for days, and then I passed out. My father was called from the farm. My mother was crying, not again, not again, because I would have been the 5th child to die. And she put me on my paternal grandma's laps, and was crying and all that. In rural Ethiopia, the dead are buried very quickly because of body decomposition. And if somebody died in the morning or very early afternoon, they are buried the same day. So they were going to bury me, actually. My grandma insisted. She said, we're not going to bury, we're not going to rush. I said, well, look, he doesn't breathe, you know, he's gone. And she said, Why is his body still warm then? But he's not breathing. I have seen dead bodies before. They go cold and they go hard. This child's body is warm and soft. Nobody messed with Grandma. She was a strong lady, fortunately. Thank you, Grandma. And so then, somebody eventually saw a faint rib cage movement. I started breathing. I started, and so, I have cheated death more than once. Back to my story. So, we're go-getters, shepherds, and rural people, generally. They have to be to survive. And, so I literally went knocking on doors. And the school, Adventists, when they establish a mission station, it's usually in a rural setting. Even if it is close to the city, it's out of the city. And the surrounding areas are farmlands, at least in that school that I went to. And I told farmers, I'm a trained farmer. School was only in the morning. Midday, school was over. So we had all afternoon. In Ethiopia, since we are closer to the equator, about 5 to 8 degrees north of the equator, the sun comes up at 6 in the morning, sets at 6 in the evening. Clockwork. So I had half of the day for work. And I told them, I can work for you. All I need is room and board. That's all I need. I will work for my clothing. I will work for my tuition. I will do that. Room and board. Well, all I needed was one family. A lot of them said no. It's like canvassing, So one family said yes. And that's how I started first grade. And then a whole new universe opened up. To be able to put letters together into words and read somebody's thoughts, and that somebody is already dead. But there is that book talking about, what life was like for that person and so on. And to read the Bible. The priests told us, every family was assigned a sole father, as they called it, in rural Ethiopia, in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. But now I could read the Bible myself. I was able to read and write in 4 or 5 months. Because number one, I was old enough. Number two, I was super duper motivated. Now, Mrs. White says, the older children are before they get to school, the better off they are. Well, I was ready. I was more than old enough. So I just gobbled it up. In hindsight, I actually am a better student than I was a farmer. Because farmland in rural Ethiopia and subsistence farming, muscle power is important. I'm a small frame, and you can imagine when I was, a teenager, 15 years old, and I was a thin guy trying to do a back-breaking job. So education was an absolute delight. A second birth, really, as I call it. I found literacy. I found a personal God, not just an inherited God, a God that I could talk to without any intermediary. So education literally changed my life. I wouldn't be here. I would not be here. Personally, professionally, and every other way. My life changed. Education didn't just change my life. it changed my entire family. My siblings are educated. I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters. My older sister was married off young. 14 years old, she was married off. In rural Ethiopia, they do that. Life expectancy is short. And so they arrange alliances. They make alliances with other families so that their children would be taken care of. Long story. But my younger brothers, and I have 2, and my younger sister were educated. I will refer to that later, because the missionaries who came from America to that mission station in northwest Ethiopia educated my siblings. 3 of them, from first grade to college. Absolutely phenomenal. So my entire family became an Adventist family. So all of us, my parents, my siblings, all 5 of us children, and our parents became Adventists. And so, you know, that eye accident, you know, it was ugly, it was painful, it was difficult, it was hard to explain, but the Lord used it as a huge blessing in disguise. Nothing of what I have related would have happened if it weren't for that accident. And maybe, you know, I have entertained why it had to be an accident to give me the benefit of education, and eventually, you know, personal faith and all that. And my conclusion is probably that would be the only way, absolutely the only way I could have left that village. So the Lord created 2 eyes. I have actually managed fairly well with 1 eye. People often ask me, you know, what happened to your eye eventually? Well, I had 4 surgeries. First surgery took the cataract and the stigmatism that the accident had caused. Second surgery had an artificial lens implant. The third surgery, that failed, so the third surgery was a repeat. The fourth surgery was a cornea transplant. So actually I have a little bit of vision, not much. You know, if you stick a finger, you know, I can say 1 or 2 and so on, but I can't treat with it. So I've gone all over the place, but my life as a shepherd was an important chapter. My life as a farmer was an important chapter, but my life as a student was in the stratosphere. It was life-changing. It was a game changer, not just for me, but for an entire community. I received a lot of help through the years. I had to. I could not survive without all the help I got from Ethiopians, from missionaries, strangers in some cases. But then I have also been able to give back. And the Bible indeed hit it on the head when it says, it is more blessed to give than to receive. The value of receiving is that I have learned to give by receiving. And the people that helped me with no strings attached, the missionaries in particular, I could not repay them for all that they have done for me. But I thought, if I do the same thing for other people that they did for me, that is somewhat of a repay. That's why they left the convenience and the comfort of home and traveled across the ocean to do, is to help people, is to bring people to the Lord. And if I do the same thing, that is their pay. And I don't think they would think there is a better pay than that. I also tell them that some of the missionaries are still alive. Everything I do has them included. This is like, for lack of a better word, to use a crude illustration, this is like network marketing. You recruit some people, and then they go and recruit other people, and it goes on. But the original person is still in that chain. So the missionaries are actually doing what they originally went to do through us. Their legacy continues. So my family has been enriched. We have the gift of education. We have the gift of personal faith. We have the gift of comfort and convenience. We've been blessed beyond belief. I can make in 1 hour more money in 1 hour than my old shepherd mates would make in a whole year. In a whole year. And so I cannot ignore that fact. I know for a fact that I'm not better than them. I probably am not more intelligent than them either. I am certain some of them are more intelligent than I am. They could have done a lot of things, more things than I have been able to do. If I take any credit at all, I have taken advantage of the opportunities that have come my way by working hard. That I can take credit for. When I talk to young people, I say to them, God has given you a talent. And God has also given you parents, grandparents, the church, somebody that has looked after you. And these things are important. Talent is important for success. Opportunities or environments, conducive environments, are important for success. But those two would not get anywhere without personal effort. Personal effort trumps a lot of things. An average person that is motivated can accomplish more than a genius that just, puts a minimum effort. That's what I tell young people. So I cannot take any credit for all the opportunities that the Lord brought my way, the Lord's children brought my way. And may God bless them and praise the Lord for that. But it is okay to take credit. I've worked hard, very hard, to take advantage of the blessings that have come my way. And I have, like I said, I have also tried to give back. After 30 years of absence, I went back to my village. And my childhood friends, my relatives were very happy, and I was too. And I was a big shot. I was the educated person, and they didn't have the advantage of education. And I came back with a huge burden. I said, what can I do? What can I do? They didn't get education. Their children, who are now in their 40s, all that didn't get education. But their grandchildren should get education. We have to break this cycle at some point. So I dreamt bigger than I thought I could accomplish. I said, I'm going to build a school for them. And I sat on it for 6 years. Nothing happened. And then an opportunity opened up. Long story. I was talking to somebody who asked me, where were you born? What did you do as a child? And I just spilled the beans, as I have in this informal conversation. And the guy was absolutely flabbergasted. He said, you mean to say you're from there to here and all that? So he said, are there any schools in there? I said, not really. There's an elementary school, but then once they finish that, they don't go anywhere. They go back to farming or whatever. And he said, well, can I help? And I said, are you serious? I said, I just about fainted. He said, I want to come to your office in 2 weeks and let's talk this out and see what we can do. The Lord has blessed this person and his family with the means. And to make a long story short, he helped me out. Then I became a fundraiser. He basically, initially, he was my main source. But then I branched out. And I told him, I will be motivated to be a better fundraiser if you give me a match. If you match me what I raise, and as much as I can, I may not make it, and when I can't make it, we'll talk. But for now, let's just go on a matching one, and we did. And I tell you, so I built a school. That's the short end of the. One of the foundations, well, actually, both of the foundations were Adventist. And so, fundraising is hard work. It's like canvassing. I mean, to ask for people's hard-earned money is no small gesture. But this wonderful family really gave me a push, a big push. So I approached another foundation. And when I talked to somebody introduced me to the chairman of the foundation. And when I talked to them, and I talked to this chairman of the board of the foundation, and he realized that it was an non-Adventist project I was doing. And he said, well, we don't do non-Adventist projects. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. I said, why not? And he said, well, we just, we set up our foundations, to further God's word and so on and so forth. And I said, you mean to tell me that if I am in dire need and you could help me, but I'm not an Adventist, you have to ask me for my religion first, and then if I'm not an Adventist, you would not help me? Really? I said, at this point, let's just suspend my fundraising effort. Let's just talk about the principle here. It is said that people do not care how much you know until they know how much you care. Chances are that if we help these people, they will ask, who are these people? Why are they doing this? There will come a time to share our faith. But let's meet their needs first. These people really need help. But for the grace of God, I could have been one of them. This is no theoretical stuff for me. This is real life story. I could be one of those people begging, for an opportunity to go to school. So I would be happy if you could help me with this project, but at a minimum, I want to change your mind, and I hope you can go and change your board's mind that this is not a good approach, in my view. It is not the right approach. Let's help people for what they need and then share our faith. I reminded him what Mrs. White says in the Ministry of Healing, I believe page 143. The Lord mingled with men, met their needs. I'm paraphrasing. And it's after that he said, follow me. So that foundation helped me with a substantial amount of money. The chairman went and talked to the board and said, about what our conversation was, and obviously the board bought it. And so we have a school in that village, a very comprehensive school. There is no electricity there, but we have electricity through the sun, solar energy. We have solar panels, so we have electricity. We have computers in that rural school. Absolutely amazing. There are about 500 some students already, half of them girls. So I have learned and I have tried to give back. And wonderful people have rallied around me to make it possible. Let me just briefly outline my educational journey. As I said, I started at age 15 and a half. I graduated from 8th grade at age 22. Then, during my 8th grade year, I met an American missionary family. Dr. Harvey Heidinger and his family, and his sister-in-law, Carolyn Stuyvesant, showed up in that mission compound. And I went and got introduced myself to them. And Carolyn Stuyvesant became my Bible teacher, actually. So we got to know each other. If I may say so, again, I was a good student. I was a conscientious student as well. She came to the school late by a month late. The principal was giving us assignments every day. I did my assignments faithfully, and when she came, I was the only one who had done my assignments. So that gave me an entry into that family as well. So they paid for my high school, boarding high school, in an Adventist boarding school. When the Ethiopian educational system is very structured. Every student in the nation takes an examination to go from grade 8 to grade 9, from grade 10 to grade 12, and then from grade 12 to college. The screening process is very stringent. So I passed well in the 8th grade national examination, and I had two choices: to attend two elite schools. But the missionary said, you need to stay in an Adventist school. We will pay for you if you want to go to a boarding school. By then, they had also agreed to help my two brothers and my sister to go to school. So I said, well, thank you very much. That's what I will do. So went to high school, graduated at age 26. And these wonderful people sponsored me to go to Avondale College in Australia. Graduated at age 30 with a college degree. Major in history and education, because I wanted to be a teacher. Then I came to this country and went to graduate school earned 3 master's degrees in history, education, and library science. I was going to go for my PhD, but I was getting a little up in years. I wanted to get married, so I got married at age 36, became a father at age 40. You know, your classic late bloomer. So then I got a job at PUC. I was working at Loma Linda first, and then I came to PUC in 1985. Worked as a science librarian from 85 to 93, and became the library director in 93, and I'm retiring this June as the longest serving library director here at PUC. Now, as Adventists, we really have a wonderful church and a wonderful theology. Like I said earlier, we do not compartmentalize. We are a holistic being, holistic church, a holistic educational system, and a holistic church belief. What attracted me to the Adventist church, and basically I came through the educational system, was that whereas in my previous church, the soul and the body and all that stuff didn't make sense to me. For example, when somebody died in my village, the expression they used was, the soul departed. And I said, in a room full of people, why didn't somebody grab that thing? You know, I was a child, of course, you know, the soul departed. Well, come on, catch it. Make it stay a little longer. I became an Adventist, or in the process of becoming an Adventist. You know, I read the Bible and it says God made us from clay and he breathed a breath of life into us. If there is a soul, such a thing as a soul, why do we need lungs? Why do we need a heart that pumps blood? You know, it's when those processes stop their work that we die, in fact. We stop breathing. And so when I learned that, I said, man, this is such a neat teaching. Number 2, I was taught in my previous church, and as many churches teach, if you don't make it to heaven, you burn forever and ever and ever. The Ethiopian church made it even a step further, took it even a step further. I was told that the fire in hell is 7 times hotter than the fire here. I fell in an open fire when I was a child, and I was badly burned on my right hand. 7 times hotter than that fire that burned me? That is terrible. Even more terrible. It doesn't just consume you and you're done with. It is forever. We don't teach that. And I liked that. In my previous church, we had patron saints, many of them. And so we made offers to this one and offers to that one, and to learn that you can actually pray in your own way to God, and he can listen to you. A huge transition. And on and on and on. So becoming an Adventist has been a huge paradigm shift. You know, it changed everything for us. Education, you know, life in general, and education in particular, since we believe, and it stands to reason, that we will be learning throughout eternity. So this life, in fact, is a rehearsal for the life to come. Now we see darkly, and we learn in very incomplete fashion, but there is so much to know, and there will be enough in the curriculum for eternity. If you study science, and if you just study the eye, and all the intricacies of just that one organ, it will take you, there are doctors who take 4 years, 8 years, and a lifetime of research on each segment of the body. And then you go out into the universe. I mean, there is a lot to learn, a lot to discover, and lifelong learning is literal for us. This life is a rehearsal. It's a foretaste, it should be. The kingdom is here, the Lord said. So we have the Lord on our side, we have the Lord's children, we learn from each other, we teach what we can, and that continues if the Lord doesn't come with some interruption between death and resurrection, and we will start where we left off. If someone had told me when I was in rural Ethiopia that someday I would be a student, someday I would be a teacher, someday I would be an administrator, someday I would be an author, and so on, I probably would have dismissed them. You know, that's what has happened. And there is a saying that if you want to make God smile or laugh, tell him about your future plans. He knows everything, and we hardly know anything about the future. We plan for it. We have to. That's the only way we can live. We have to plan that to some degree the present will continue into the future with changes and modifications, and sometimes complete changes. But we have to assume that there is continuity somewhere. Fortunately, God created the universe with laws and functions that are predictable. The natural laws that scientists have discovered were the same ones that were there 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. And their assumption into the future is that the same regular, predictable laws of physics or the universe will continue. We can make that kind of predictions and plans. But when it comes to human science and human thought in particular, human nature has a way of cheating a lot of prophets. You predict something and something else happens. So my life was absolutely a total mystery at the beginning. I had no idea. Nobody else had any idea that it would turn out the way it has. I am grateful. I'm exceedingly grateful that it turned out this way. I feel like I have lived 500 years in one lifetime, having come from a very basic society. No technology, no nothing. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Judge me not by the heights to which I have climbed, but by the depth from which I have come." What I have become and where I have reached is only meaningful if I refer back to where I was, the depth from which I have come. Like I said earlier, I have done my share. I have worked hard. I have taken advantage of the opportunities. But there is absolutely no way that I could have done any of it on my own. So may God bless the missionaries. May God bless the teachers, the pastors, the administrators. I am truly a product of the Adventist Church, of Adventist education, and so on and so forth. So I am a very, very lucky man. If I die tomorrow, having gone what I have gone through, having achieved what I have achieved through God's help and God's children, help from God's children, I have nothing to complain and nothing to regret, except, the usual human mistakes that we all make. And thank God for forgiveness and for second chances.